Hello and welcome to today's show, The Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Reba Bell. Hey guys, thank you for joining another episode of The Breakthrough Podcast. Of course, I am your host, Reba Bell. It feels kind of weird today because if you listen to me on Spotify, thank you for listening. But I am on virtual. I am on, if you want to say virtual, whatever, video on YouTube right now. So it's still kind of weird because usually, as everybody knows that's been listening, I have been doing audio mostly unless I do my interviews. But we're going to try something new today. And we're just going to jump right into it because at the same time, I am at home and I am right now until I move. I'm moving the end of this year until I get my home. I am going to be in either in my living room or my kitchen. Hey, that's the thing with podcasts. You do what you can do when you can do it. So, with that being said, if you are listening to this on Spotify or you're listening to this on the Apple platform, the podcast platform, and it's just audio, please hit the link and subscribe to the Breakthrough Podcast. Share it out, like it. Also, if you're on YouTube and you're watching me from your home on YouTube, please click it at the bottom to share. Share this podcast with as many people as you want to. And also, please give me a 5-star rating so we can get more ratings up, Lord. And I said, Lord, because, I'm talking to the Lord at the same time, talking to you guys. But that's how I talk. But whatever. Let's get into the episode. I just want to say some reminders. This podcast is brought to you by me. From Ashes to Beauty Coaching. I have my coaching opening up in April 2022. We'll let you know more about that, but that's what this podcast is brought to you by. And remember, if you are listening on the podcast platform, you do get the code podcast 2022. And I also think it's for YouTube too. If I'm correct, I'll check with my assistant later. But if you get the code podcast 2022, you get 22% off my books. Okay. Everybody knows if I have new listeners, welcome. But the people that know me, I have 2 books that's out, From Ashes to Beauty. And we also have A Blessing in Disguise. First book is about my story, my personal life journey of what I've been through when I went through domestic violence in my past and up until now. And the second book is my life up until now, of my autobiography about my life from birth to now and where God transitioned me and placed me. So if you want to get either one of my books and you're listening to this podcast, it is podcast 2022 for the discount code in the link. So please like, share, and subscribe. And with that being said, we're going to get into today's episode. Today's episode is episode 9, guys. We almost at 10. Wow. This podcast journey has been, I can be honest and say it has been tremendous, because when I thought about doing this and God placed on my heart what I need to do going forward with my business, like I said, I had my coaching business first, and he said you can reach more people by doing this. And I love talking. The funny part is I like helping people. I've been like this all my life. So that's why we call it the breakthrough, because on this platform, if you have a breakthrough or anything you're listening to, and when you coach with me, you have a breakthrough after the end of the coaching. So if you're having a breakthrough on this, then let me know. If you have some critiques or anything that you want me to do, any topics you want me to talk about, guys, let me know in the comment section, or you can put it in the link. I think on the Spotify, you can comment, and you can also send me a video. So that's the great thing about Spotify and the I think it's Anchor, the Anchor app. If you're listening on Anchor, thank you for listening, and we're on Spotify. So thank you for listening, but you can comment and give me what you wanted me to talk about, and you want me to talk on whatever topics, or you can give me some critiques. And like I said, like, share, or subscribe. Subscribing has helped me get to more followers where we'll get a bigger platform. So, yeah. I am your host, Reba Bell. This is episode 9, and I want to talk about this month. Don't forget the word of the year is elevation. I don't want to ever forget to tell you the word of the year is elevation, meaning we're going to the next level in God, in our business, in our lives. So God is elevating us in the year 2022. He placed that on my heart to share with you at the end of last year, and that's our word of the year. So every podcast, we're going to talk about elevation in some kind of way. Since we're on that, we're talking about this month is March. We know it's Money March. Most people, if you're watching or if you're listening to other people, pretty much everybody's talking about the money platform in the month of March. And I think the reason why is because, of course, the common M&M. But I also think it's because after January and February come up, it's like, okay, this is the new, you know how we set new goals, new rituals, whatever you want to set. And then when March comes, it's like, okay, let's get our finances in order. It just seems like weight loss is one thing. And then it's like, okay, I gotta focus on what I want to do this year. And I want to, your vision board, you got everything you got going on. So it just fits with the month of March once you get into the month of March, because you got springtime coming, you got new things happening, you got the birds and the trees and everything is transitioning. And I take it as a spiritual, everything I take it as spiritual. So everything is transitioning to new. So why not get your money together and in order so brand new things could happen and come. So we're talking about money in the month of March. We're still basing it off of course, you know what I coach on. I coach to talk about, I coach on any kind of mental, physical, emotional abuse. It could be a spiritual abuse, but what we're talking about today is financial abuse. And I'm just going to tie it all in together. Why we're talking about these certain issues or these certain topics. I placed on part of my heart to talk about money is because a lot of times when we get in relationships, whatever relationship you're in, there is a financial burden. And sometimes the number one thing about marriages and why they get divorced and why things don't happen is because the tear and the torment of finances. Let's just be real. Finances is a big thing that mentally, I'll talk about me. I only can talk about me and be transparent. Me, I know personally, Reba, when I am between blessings, because I'm getting out the words and broke, but when I am between blessings, I don't have the right mindset. And it's meaning that if the finances are not there, my essential needs are not taken care of, I'm more in this, I got to get it mode. There's nothing wrong with that in a sense of, okay, you gonna do whatever you gotta do. But also it can hurt you and hinder you too, because if you're not focused on that, God got you in the place where he got you. And regardless of if you're not being lazy, you're already doing what you're doing. And you know that, okay, certain things happen, bills are going to come. That's a necessary, that's to the day we die. But if you're not focused so much on with me, I applied and I'm starting to apply that, okay, I got to not focus on what I don't have, but I got to focus on what I do have. And when I start focusing on what I do have, because everybody's situation is different and it could be worse. So when you focus on what you do have, it kind of gets your mind off what you don't have or what you don't have, and you plan for it. So what I do personally, I've been doing this since I learned how to budget since I was like, when I was young, about 17, 18. And I have got to the point of I budget to a T. Now, budgeting is a great thing, but sometimes I notice too, it can hinder you because you don't want to spend any extra if you budget like I budget. I budget to the point like I don't have it. And once it hit that budget, and sometimes that's not a bad thing. Most of the time that's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing, but it could be a bad thing because you don't open yourself up in your mind to say, okay, are you just being cheap? Because I call myself very. If anybody know me, I am. I would save every penny, but I'm learning to more to save, but also invest. So if I have the money to invest in me, my life, whatever I need to grow, that I'm educating myself on more investment because honestly, as we learned last week, and shout out to the podcast from last week, Dion just blew it up with talking about credit. Like I meant to say that at the beginning, but let's shout out Dion. Dion Cookwood, if you watched the podcast or you listened to the podcast last week, he blew us away, personally me, with how credit is affecting our lives, whether it's good or bad. We already know the bad about credit, but even me, I learned having good credit, and if I'm not using it, it's hindering me. So if you did not listen to it, go back and listen to last week's. It is just amazing. It was just amazing interview, one of the best interviews I've done. But like I said, with me with the saving, we know that saving sometimes, if you're not saving and it's not growing interest and it's not doing what it needs to do with whatever bank that you in, you're pretty much saving just to be saving. And that's the money, that's the bank's money. They're not doing nothing. They're using your money anyway. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother situation. What I wanted to talk about with budgeting, it all wraps together. With budgeting and with saving this week is when you are in a situation, whether it's domestic violence, emotional abuse, or whatever, I want to talk about hit on the point of financial abuse. I think I want to hit on this really quickly because I had a young lady, one of my clients, talk to me last week about financial abuse that she went through in her marriage. And a lot of people don't know that that does happen because when we feel like we don't want to get out of abusive, necessarily, it can be physical, financial situation where someone, you could be married to a narcissist or you could be married to someone that's very controlling. When they have the finances, whether it's man or woman, because it could be both, um, when they have the finances, the control of the finances, you may stay in that abusive relationship because you may feel that I have nowhere to go. I'm talking from experience because I did this with my son's father at one point in time, and we wasn't married, but we were living together in a relationship. I felt like because I didn't have a job at the time and I didn't work, and I was just had my baby, I was pregnant, and then because we broke up when my son was 3 weeks, but had my baby and I was pregnant with our baby, and I had to be on bed rest, and I didn't have a car, so I had to rely on him for a lot of things. Well, when you're in a situation like that and you're not in a situation where it's not controlling, you may feel like I have to stay because but I don't have. And that's necessarily not true. Since then, of course, that was 15 years ago. And we have a great relationship now, me and my son's father. But since then, I've learned that use the skills that you know. And if you don't know how to budget, go have somebody help you. Take some classes. Well, I know that now with technology being the way it is, it's so much easier to get the help online that you need, meaning um take the classes. There's so many free classes, so much free stuff. Information is just out there. Go to the library. A lot of times, what I still do because I love going to the library, my kids do too. We go to the library and I look up books and I found books. I'll sit in the library and just read books on information that I need to know. Right now, I'm educating myself on what I'm studying and educating myself on as my son, trying to help him as African American, Black, or whatever what you want to call it. I don't want to go through the debate. And a comment my son said to me about him being a Black man and being a young Black boy. He's 14 right now, and him being afraid to grow up as a Black young man. So right now I'm doing a lot of education on how to because it starts at home. How to educate our kids, how to educate our kids that look like us, so the skin color, and our young Black women and men, and also to encourage him that it's okay. But that's another podcast. That's another episode. Speaking of, my son wants to be on my podcast, so we're gonna in the next couple of weeks have him on, and we're gonna have his views on and takes on being a teenager and how everything works with his life. But back to what I was saying, go to the library, get the budgeting skills, get whatever you need to get. If you are in a situation where you feel like it's financial abuse and you get allocated money or you get allocated, you feel like I can't leave, start looking for jobs, start looking for other avenues where you can educate yourself some way, somehow, where you can get out of that situation and not be in that situation anymore. What I did, because I knew how to budget at that time, after I got out of the situation or whatever, I end up saying, okay, if I'm going to do something, because I've been homeless twice, it's another time for another story. But what I did for myself to not be back in a situation like that, I took control of my own financial burdens and help and did what I have to do. I used what I learned, budgeting changes. I took classes. I watched people on Instagram. I watched YouTube things. How can I help myself? I educated myself a lot, so I would not have to be back in a situation where I'm reliant and dependent on just one person of the finances. Where if I had a job, I knew what I had to do just in case that person had to leave. Now, I'm not going to say it's so much easier once that person leaves and you're doing it all by yourself because it's new, but it makes you feel so much self-dependent on you, and to understand that when you get into another relationship and the next relationship you get into, that you can do it and I don't have to feel stuck. So that's why I wanted to talk about a little snippet of financial hardships or financial, what I was calling it in the beginning. I think I called it financial abuse, but financial help and budgeting. Budgeting could be an amazing thing for you. Like I said, I budget to the T every month, because I have to know once I spend what I'm spending on. And then if I want to save for something and I know something is coming up, okay, I have to put money away for that. If I don't want to save for something, I still put money away, even if it's $5 or $10. Trust me, I have not been to the point where I have not had to say, like, okay, only had after I paid my tithes first and then I paid bills and paid this, paid that, paid this, and broke everything down, that I had $5 left. I put $5 in my savings because that $5 added up. And that's $5 I didn't have. So if I want to talk to you and give any breakthrough for you today, my breakthrough for you and this podcast will be to get your financial help that you need. Start budgeting if you know how to budget. If you don't know how to budget, talk to someone. You can talk to a friend or family member. Go around and ask your friends or family, do they budget? And be honest. Do you budget every month? How do you budget? Can you help me to budget? What your finances look like? Because at the same time, and at the end of the day, money is what we need, but at the same time, God is our center of everything. And I really believe that God places things in us or other people around us in our communities to help us be where we need to be and grow. So if we're going to elevate this year, let's get our finances together. Number one. Also, if we want to talk really quickly on investing, invest in a mentor, invest in a coach. And I have a coach. I want to find me a mentor. There are two different things. I'll explain that a little later time. But I have a coach because I can't be a great coach for you if I don't have a coach. I actually have two coaches, but invest in mentors, and you never know what could happen. You could never know what could happen with your coaching and having someone that you invest in. And if you don't have the money to invest, just ask a church member, a family member, can you help me? Somebody that you know. No, let's be real. Let's stop right here. Someone that you personally know that knows in that expertise. that have an expertise in that area. Don't go asking Cousin Johnny when you ain't seeing Cousin Johnny budget or buy nothing. And I'm talking about a house, a car, financial, you haven't put nothing together. Don't go ask Cousin Johnny, because Cousin Johnny ain't gonna help you. You and Cousin Johnny in the same boat. What I'm saying today is ask someone that you know if you don't have the finances to invest. There are avenues. Again, number one, you can ask someone. Number two, you can go to the library, read books. Number three, you can go on the internet, watch YouTube. YouTube is a great avenue, guys. Use YouTube for what it needs to be used for. Also, within the last year, I've been on Pinterest a lot because I didn't know that Pinterest is kind of getting on the platform of YouTube where they're teaching you things, not just with cooking, because I was going on Pinterest for years just for cooking, because I love cooking for recipes. But Pinterest have the same thing. You want to learn about budgeting? They teach you that too. So we have no excuses, to me, in this next year of elevation to say I have an excuse. With my clients, when they talk to me, I listen to their issues, but I don't let them make excuses, because if you have excuses, just like my shirt says today, if the people on Spotify and the people on the Anchor can't see, but my shirt says today, mindset is everything. Trust me, every day I don't have the right mindset. Trust me. I am actually going through something personal right now, but I have to remind my own self, mindset is everything, because when you have the excuses and you say, I can't do, that's why I listen to affirmations and I listen to podcasts and I just don't create a podcast. I have so many podcasts that I listen to because actually they're teaching me and I'm learning too. Go and get a podcast. The podcast app is totally free. I have an iPhone, so it's free on the iPhone. I'm sure it's free on Android. Listen to podcasts. I'm telling you, it'll get your mind together. On top of what I do in the morning with spiritual, I have a whole program, a ritual that I do every morning when I pray. After I pray and do my devotion and then read my Bible, I go and start listening to stuff that can educate my mind. My husband was doing this for years, and I just couldn't understand why he was doing this before I even thought about podcasts. And I'm just like, this boy listens to podcasts all the time. This boy listens to podcasts all the time. But I realized now, over years later, why he was doing it. He was educating his mind as he working. He's educating his mind on things he needs to do or whatever, and he's learning from it. Now, applied knowledge is power, not just having knowledge. Because if you have knowledge and you don't put it to paper, just like with this budgeting, you can learn everything about budgeting and you don't put it to paper. You don't put it on the paper to say, okay, this is my finances, what I gotta do, this is what I gotta save. It is nothing. You can be like, I know about budgeting. Okay, great. Are you applying it? So I tell everybody, apply knowledge is power, not knowledge is power. A lot of times I think we hear that and it'd be like, oh yeah, knowledge is power. Knowledge ain't nothing if you don't use it. You gotta apply it. With that being said, again, a recap of today. Get out of the financial abuse. If you are in a financial abuse relationship, educate yourself. Go to the library, listen to podcasts, listen to YouTube. Also, ask a friend, ask a family member, ask someone you know that have an expertise in finances. Get yourself together in this next year elevation. And pretty much bring what you need to bring to the table to get your finances together. And that was the end of the Breakthrough Podcast for you. Also, guys, next week, I think I am on 2 platforms. I am interviewing on 2 different platforms. I'll let you guys know about that so you can go watch and share that, and I'll share it with you once I get all the information or whatever. And then I will have another guest talking about finances coming in the end of the month. And so we're getting up there, guys. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. And I will see you guys back next week. Bye. Thanks for listening in on today's show. You can find me online at RebaBell.com to order any of my products or my books. Or you can find me at Instagram at BreakthroughCoach_Reba Arve. Thank you again, and see you next week.